So my Doctor Who rewatch has reached September of 1978, so I thought it might be a good time to have a look at this. The Doctor Who Annual 1979, which came out around the same time that the reboot operation was broadcast. So there's no Romana, as you might expect, but sadly there's no K9 either. Leela is present, but they don't seem to have the likeness for Louise Jameson. Instead they use this woman. I don't know who she is. I guess she's an alternate universe version of Leela. The annual has 5 text stories and 2 comic-style stories, as well as a bunch of puzzles and features. First up, there's a 7-page story, Famine on Planet X. The TARDIS lands on a barren planet, and the Doctor and Leela meet the inhabitants, 3-legged octopoids who communicate by generating symbols between their horns. And the Doctor saves their entire planet by planting seeds which germinate within seconds. It's not much of a story, but the aliens are far weirder than anything the BBC visual effects department could possibly manage. So it stimulates the imagination at least. Next we have a crossword, which is all being filled in, either by my younger self or whoever had the annual before me. I'm not quite old enough to have bought it the first time around. I must have got it from a car boot sale during the 80s. Then we have the first factual section, Ships of the Skies, which seems to come from some sort of parallel universe in which airships transport cargo around the world. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a UFO? A flying saucer? No, it's a revolutionary new cargo and passenger craft called a skyship. Looking like someone's idea of a monster-sized flying saucer, the skyship is a British design, developed to succeed the Zeppelins and other inflatable airships, which were abandoned after some terrible crashes and fires destroyed confidence in them. The skyship, which eventually goes into service, will be very large indeed, capable of carrying many tons of cargo and thousands of passengers. They are envisaged as being more than 200 metres across, with a maximum thickness of more than 50 metres, and will weigh something between 600 and 800 tons. They will probably be disc or cigar shaped, and will be as big as a 14-storey building. Yeah, there's a lot of probably and will be here, so you can tell this is just a concept. The engines will be standard gas turbines run on natural gas, which will run the huge propellers, and it is hoped that this will make the skyship an economic success. The engines will enable the skyship to travel at about 144 kilometres per hour, even fully loaded. Obviously, this never came to pass. The closest thing I can find to it in real life is the Airship Industries Skyship 600. Unfortunately, Airship Industries collapsed in 1990, and most have been used just for advertising purposes, not for transporting cargo very slowly. Still, there are some nice artist impressions of what could have been. Certainly a lot more aesthetically pleasing than trucks and cargo ships. So maybe someday somebody will get them working again. There's a page about Pioneer 10's trip to Jupiter, as well as a possible manned mission to Mars, which we're still waiting for. Then there's a puzzle page where you have 15 seconds to choose which wire to cut before the bomb explodes. It's basically a maze. Next we have the Planet of Dust. This is an 8-page story in which the Doctor and Leela visit another barren planet and are captured by the giant Beshi, who looks quite fearsome in the illustrations. Leela is about to be sacrificed, but the Doctor saves the day by telepathically communicating with a bunch of plants, including a large purple pansy. I bet Tom Baker would have loved doing that story. Next we have the 8-page story, Terror on Tanthologus. This time they visit a perfectly nice planet with an advanced civilization, only to discover that the aliens live off the life force of other people. There's a lot of long, boring speeches, and it's all a bit tedious, but the Doctor saves the day at the end. Then we have the first comic strip story, The Power, set on yet another alien planet, with varying factions battling for power. There's Zig, leader of the Panashen, who is an old man wearing a mask, and Princess Azula, who has the body of a beautiful woman, but the face of some sort of monkey. Weirdly, the Doctor is wearing a suit, and Leela is wearing jeans. I'm not sure if the artist has ever seen the show before, but the artwork is very striking all the same. In the end, it seems to be some sort of Christian allegory. The secret of the power is in this book. It is a book of learning, of wisdom, of kindness, of hope, of tolerance, of courage, of patience, of persistence, of faith, of truth, and of love. It is, of course, Prince Harry's autobiography. Next we have Flashback. Instead of a planet, they land on a space station for once. And a saboteur hypnotises the crew into wreaking havoc. This seems a lot better written than the other stories. Leela gets some decent characterisation and feels much more like she does in television, always reaching for a knife and not using contractions. Unfortunately, the bad guy Skeed is described as a fat little man, his 3 chins quivering as his body shucks with laughter, which feels a bit nasty nowadays. So it's still a bit dated, but a step in the right direction. Next we have a puzzle, Guessing the Gargle, where you have to determine which of these plants is bigger than the other. It's the top one, it's obviously the top one. Then there's Prisoners of the Profusions, which is a board game. You need 2 teams of equal numbers to play it. And the team which gets all its members back to the TARDIS is the winner. Unfortunately, you would need 4 or 6 people to play it with, and even when I was a child, I never had that many friends. Then we have the second comic strip, Emson's Castle. This isn't really a comic strip, it's more a bunch of images with narration, like the Rupert Bear comics. But the artwork is really good, so you can't really complain. The story feels inspired by the brain of Morbius. There's a castle, there's a brutish monster, and the Doctor has a psychic battle with a bad guy who wants to put his brain in a tank. Luckily, the castle is destroyed, and Emson goes splat. And it ends with them all having a cup of tea. The final text story is the Crocodiles from the Mist, which is 8 pages long. They land on another hellish planet full of crocodiles. Leela draws her dagger, but the Doctor realises that he can communicate telepathically with them, which is something he does in pretty much all the stories in the annual, and very few of them on screen. The Doctor reads the crocodile's minds to discover that there's a crashed spaceship leaking radiation, and he has to blow it up to save the planet. And along the way, he teaches Leela to use stilts. The creatures and the landscape ensure that the story could never have been done on TV. But the story itself is very long, quite boring, with no characters other than the Doctor and Leela. So it's not a great one to end with. Finally, we have Dressed for a Walk, which is a look at the Apollo 15 spacesuits. And unlike the bit about flying airships, this one seems quite factually correct. So yeah, that's the 1979 annual. I don't think I ever bought any of the annuals from the 1980s, despite that being my peak years of Doctor Who fandom. So I might have to hunt them down on eBay, so I can read them in accompaniment to my rewatch of the actual show. So thanks for watching. I'll be back on Monday with my review of the Rebus operation. Please subscribe if you want to see that, and I'll see you next time.